David, a former soldier, is now an armed operations officer with the London Metropolitan Police. On leave, he's traveling with his 2 kids. When the train stops at a station, he notices a man acting suspiciously, making a call, then discarding his SIM card. Soon after, he sees a train staff member looking tense, lingering outside the restroom. His instincts kick in, sensing trouble. Leaving his kids with a passenger, he approaches the staff member and reveals, "I'm Officer David Budd, London Met. What's going on?" "There's an Asian man, mid-20s, acting suspiciously." "Right. How do you know?" "I saw you watching him in my carriage." "He's not a threat. But I spotted someone suspicious at Marston Station. I'm not sure if he boarded, but if he did, he's likely in the restroom." His observations convince the staff member. She reveals London police suspect a terrorist bomb plot on the train. They've been ordered to stop at an abandoned station for police to take over, but it's 7 minutes away, and the terrorist might act sooner. David deduces the terrorist is in the restroom and will likely detonate in a carriage for maximum damage. He takes the staff member's number, asking her to follow his lead. London police are waiting at the abandoned station, positioned outside the restroom. David calls the staff member, urging calm. If the train slows, the terrorist might notice and rush to detonate. He instructs her to open the carriage door when the suspect emerges, so he can shut them off the train. As the restroom door opens, David readies a kick but stops when a Middle Eastern man steps out. He tails the man, describes his appearance to the staff, confirms he's not a threat, and tells her to inform the police. Checking the restroom, David's heart races. A Middle Eastern woman, veiled, is strapped with explosives. One switch could blow up nearby carriages. To calm her, he says, "May Allah protect you." He shares his Afghanistan war experience, seeing comrades die, calling it a politician's game where innocents like her are pawns, showing photos of his kids. He stresses the train is full of innocent lives, including children. He learns her husband forced her into this. David convinces her she's been brainwashed and her sacrifice is meaningless. As the train reaches the station, counter-terrorism police board, seeing her panic, David shields her from snipers, staying by her side. With his persistence, she trusts him and works with bomb disposal experts to deactivate the device, averting disaster. David takes his kids home, skilled at stopping terrorists but failing at marriage. Post-war, David suffers PTSD. He and his wife, Vicky, sleep apart, their marriage crumbling, held together only for their kids. The next day, news of the foiled attack spreads. For his heroics, David is praised by the Home Office Minister, promoted, and assigned to lead the security detail for Home Secretary Julia starting tomorrow. Researching Julia, David learns she's a cunning politician who sent him to Afghanistan. His feelings are mixed, but duty calls. The next day, in professional bodyguard mode, he meets Julia, a strong, fast-paced, cold woman. He suggests altering her route to the parking garage, but she ignores him. Escorting her home, he proposes a different route. She brushes it off. Exhausted, Julia grows impatient as David checks her rooms. But when she reads a report naming David as the one who stopped the train bombing, her attitude shifts. She apologizes for her rudeness. The next day, Julia prepares for a TV interview. Her aide spills coffee on her, and with no time to change, David lends his shirt. Julia, surprised by his thoughtfulness, softens. That night, on TV, she defends overseas military actions. As a war victim, David, haunted by lost comrades and his broken family, feels enraged. Julia's aide fired, makes a scene. David calms her and escorts her out. This aide, with a shady background, will reappear later. At a meeting, Julia's ex-husband, Roger, confronts her about challenging the Prime Minister, hinting at her ambitions. David interrupts, noting the meeting's start time.
Can't you call your monkey off? Throw him some nuts.
I'm mixed race.
Julia looks at David differently. Visiting his kids, David learns from Vicky they're at a friend's. He discovers a man stayed over, barely containing his anger.
In case anything happens to me at work, you still get the pension if we're legally married.
After work, he drinks with his old comrade Andy, who's baffled that David protects politicians, the same ones who sent them to war, leaving survivors like them with physical and mental scars. David listens silently. Vicky calls, saying their son, dyslexic, was denied entry to a special needs school. Julia learns of this. Defense Secretary Stephen tells Julia intelligence reports terrorists plan to attack a London school, the one David's kids attend. It's retaliation for foiling the train bombing. Either David failed to secure his personal info, or there's a mole in the police. They decide to quietly protect the school to avoid tipping off the terrorists. Julia and Stephen's private meetings annoy counter-terrorism minister Mike. At a high-level meeting, with no leads on the train bombing, Julia wants the security service to join the investigation. Mike and Anne, head of London's counter-terrorism command, oppose this, fearing loss of authority. Julia backs down under Mike's pressure. Anne gets word from police cameras. Terrorists are active, their target unclear. Police are discreetly tracking them. The police notice the terrorists switch to a truck, unsure if it's loaded with explosives. Anne orders nearby armored vehicles to assist, authorizing the police to force the truck to stop and shoot if the suspects resist. Suddenly, the truck speeds up and veers off. Realizing it's being tailed, it heads straight for a school. Anne orders an immediate intercept. Sirens blaring, the police chase and try to block the truck, but its size overpowers them, crashing into a police car and continuing toward the school. Teachers spot it from afar and urgently evacuate the students. Just then, an armored vehicle blocks the truck's path. Special forces jump out, firing at the truck, causing it to swerve, crash into a roadside car, and stall. Officers approach, finding the driver unconscious. Suddenly, he flashes a sinister grin, and the truck explodes. Mike reports to Julia. 3 officers and 2 suspects died instantly, with 5 officers injured. The blast happened near Chrissy Elementary, but thankfully, no teachers or students were harmed. Hearing the school's name, Julia freezes. Mike, sensing something off, asks if she knows it. She quickly denies it. Julia tells David about the explosion, and learning it was near his kid's school, he's stunned. The police commissioner informs David his family is safe. The bombing targeted him in retaliation for stopping the train attack. To protect David, his family, and Julia, he's temporarily reassigned. Furious, David insists they investigate who leaked his family's details, but he must follow protocol. At home, Vicky argues with David over the incident. Drinking with Andy, David sees Julia on TV. Andy, enraged, rants about politicians, fueling David's bitterness. Meanwhile, Vicky receives a package with an acceptance letter for their son to a special needs school. Both are thrilled but confused. At a high-level meeting, with the counter-terrorism department stalled, Stephen from the security service escalates tensions. Julia, furious, slams Anne's inefficiency and demands the security service join the investigation. Mike and Anne fiercely object.
The one officer who actually successfully averted a threat, he's the one you people want to remove from my protection team.
The room falls silent, stunned by David's importance. Even Julia. The meeting ends, and Anne snaps at Stephen. The commissioner reinstates David as Julia's bodyguard. Surprised and relieved, David hears a cryptic comment. Looks like you've made friends in high places. Back on duty, Julia feels secure with David. Over dinner, learning about his crumbling marriage, Julia's demeanor shifts. Suspecting she helped his son get into school, David thanks her. While driving Julia home, a bullet shatters the car's window. A second shot kills the driver, blood spraying everywhere. David stops the car, telling Julia to duck. Bullets can pierce glass but not the car's body. He alerts the police to the assassination attempt, requesting backup, but the shooter's location is unknown. They stay in the car, awaiting help. Bullets rain down, riddling the vehicle. Julia cowers in fear. David holds her hand, calming her. Noticing the shots come from the left, he exits on the right, snaps a photo, zooms in, and spots the sniper. He relays the position to command, demanding why armored support isn't there. They reply, 2 minutes. David snaps, 2 minutes, this car's a sitting duck. He pulls the driver out, starts the car, and reverses while reassuring Julia. Bullets keep coming, but David drives them out of the danger zone. Once safe, he grabs his gun, orders the backup team to protect Julia, and storms a nearby building. Identifying himself as police, he has a guard lead him to the roof to confront the sniper. Acting swiftly, David corners the shooter before he escapes. To his shock, it's Andy, his old comrade. Unable to flee, Andy says someone will stop Julia, then shoots himself. David is devastated, the pain indelible. Julia, taken to a safe house, is furious, questioning why the police delayed. Suspecting Anne orchestrated the attack, David struggles to comfort her. Julia, no longer stoic, seeks solace in his arms. An intimate tension builds, and they share a passionate night. The next morning, Julia, rattled, hides in the bathroom, unsure what to do. David stays calm, resuming work mode. The commissioner and Anne call him in, praising his composure but sowing discord. Anne reveals Julia knew the terrorists targeted his kids' school but didn't warn him, endangering them. Stunned, David is ordered to monitor Julia. That night at the hotel, unable to resist, David and Julia approach the door between them. They know opening it will complicate everything, but desire overrides reason. David opens the door, and they fall into each other's arms. During the ambush on Julia's car, she cowers in fear. Thanks to David's calm, they escaped, and he caught the sniper, his comrade Andy, who took his own life, deeply shaking David. The incident rocks the nation. As the only witness to the sniper's identity, David is questioned by senior investigators Sharma and Rayburn. For self-preservation, David hides his connection to Andy, fearing his PTSD diagnosis could cost him his job and ability to support his family. At the hotel, curious and tasked with monitoring Julia, David uses a listening device and overhears a mysterious man, Richard, give her restricted, password-protected documents. Hearing the door close, David follows to identify him. Richard calmly reveals his name and leaves. Julia views the tablet, revealing the Prime Minister's dark history, alcoholism, drug abuse, and more. With this, ousting him is inevitable. David searches police records for Richard but finds nothing. Only someone from the security service could bypass such scrutiny. The next day, Stephen asks Julia about the documents, all under David's watch. That night, while Julia sleeps, David sneaks a look at her tablet, stunned by the Prime Minister's secrets. At the commissioner's office, David reports the incident to her and Anne, withholding the document's contents. At a meeting, Julia delivers a fierce speech, pushing an investigative powers bill that threatens the Prime Minister. She easily secures parliamentary votes. With public support, she could replace him. Her advisor Tahir urges her to speak at a university to boost her popularity. The police keep investigating the sniper's identity but have no leads yet. Julia secretly leaves the city, asking David to join her. At night, they arrive at a mansion. Before getting out, Julia warns, "Don't tell anyone I was here. If anything happens to me, look for answers in the photo frame at my apartment." David realizes the mansion belongs to the Prime Minister. It seems Julia wants to confront him, forcing a dignified resignation. The situation is grave. Stephen learns Julia has the Prime Minister's damning secrets but, instead of following the plan, negotiates with him directly, infuriating Stephen. Mike and Roger, hearing this, are shocked. Supporting the Prime Minister, they fear Julia's rise and start plotting countermeasures. Days later, Julia prepares to speak at a university. Her speech is ready in a briefcase handled by advisor MacDonald. Suddenly, MacDonald tells Tahir he has an urgent matter, can't attend, and entrusts Tahir to deliver the speech to Julia. At the event, the opposition protests, heckling Julia and throwing eggs, creating chaos. After the recent assassination attempt, David is on edge, escorting Julia inside. The audience settles, and a colleague tells David the final security sweep is complete, everything's set. In a private room, Julia confides in David about the school bombing. "I was the first to know it was your kid's school. We feared leaking the info would make the terrorists change targets, so we told no one, but I arranged armed police to protect it quietly, so nothing happened." Holding his hand, she sees him as her most trusted ally. The speech begins. Julia's arguments are sharp, captivating the crowd. David, tense, scans every movement, admiring the brilliant woman before him. Suddenly, someone passes a door opposite him. Instantly alert, he checks and finds Tahir. Asked why he's there, Tahir nervously says Julia's speech has errors, and he needs to warn her. David orders him to open the briefcase. Tahir shows the documents, and after a thorough check, David lets him enter. Back in the hall, a colleague asks if David found anything. He says it was just nerves. Julia continues speaking. Suddenly, the colleague spots something odd and rushes toward the stage. Sensing danger, David races to Julia. An explosion rocks the hall, smoke filling the air, screams echoing. David finds Julia, collapsed and dying. At the hospital, the nation reels from the bombing news. MacDonald, Mike, and Roger arrive. Roger furiously blames David for failing to protect Julia. Enraged, David storms off. Anne, distressed, fears the incident jeopardizes her position. Sharma and Rayburn investigate, pinpointing Tahir as the main suspect for carrying the briefcase. Though he died in the blast, they search David's home but find nothing. As the bodyguard who last interacted with Tahir, David is also suspected. During questioning, David learns his colleague Kimberly died in the explosion, deepening his grief. He explains Tahir, Julius' advisor, was thoroughly vetted. He checked the briefcase, found no bomb, and had no reason to stop Tahir, but Sharma and Rayburn seem to distrust him, suspecting he's Tahir's accomplice. Lacking evidence, they release him. At home, David, broken, asks Vicky, "Your new boyfriend, will he be a good dad?" Vicky, silent, walks away. David takes a spare key to his apartment from her bag and returns to the hospital, awaiting Julia's status. Mike, the counter-terrorism minister, temporarily takes Julia's role. No group claims responsibility. Anne accuses Stephen, security service director, of letting Tahir infiltrate the team. Stephen denies it, blaming Anne's lax venue security. They argue fiercely. Mike, furious, intervenes, suggesting the train, school, sniper, and hall attacks are linked to one terrorist group. He strips the security service of the Julia case, handing it to the police. Anne, smug, taunts Stephen after the meeting. At the hospital, David learns Julia didn't survive. Devastated, he returns to his apartment, retrieves a hidden gun, overwhelmed by trauma and PTSD. The next morning, Vicky, not seeing David, senses trouble. Recalling their talk and the missing key, she rushes to his apartment and knocks. When David opens the door, she sees a burn on his temple. After pressing him, he admits he tried to end his life but failed. The bullet was a blank. Vicky, worried, insists he not be alone and takes him home. Seeing his kids, David hugs them, tears streaming. Realizing he nearly abandoned them, determined, he resolves to find who swapped his bullet and uncover the mastermind behind the attacks. Sharma and Rayburn, reviewing footage, find MacDonald gave Tahir the briefcase before the speech. They question MacDonald on why he skipped the crucial event and if he knew about the bomb. He claims an urgent matter. Rayburn shows footage of him handing Tahir the briefcase. MacDonald insists it held only documents, but with Tahir dead, no one can verify, so they release him. David visits Julia's hotel to investigate Richard, but finds the footage of Richard's visit erased. No camera captured him. Anne decides to re-interview the Middle Eastern woman from the train bombing, believing she'll trust David. Rayburn drives David to meet her. More at ease with David, she reveals her husband gave her the bomb, received from someone else, but shared no details. He often locked her in a room, only once taking her to meet a man who supplied the bomb. Rayburn shows suspect photos, including Tahir's, but she says the man isn't among them. Afterward, David tells Rayburn he suspects a high-ranking official's involvement, mentioning Richard, who accesses government rooms and erases footage undetected. David believes the security service is behind it. Rayburn, helpless, says her rank can't probe such matters and urges David to stop. That night, Rayburn calls David. Forensics confirm the bomb was under the stage, not in the briefcase, clearing Tahir and David. She also verifies a deleted footage segment, now trusting David, and asks him to assist the investigation. Using his memory, David sketches Richard's likeness. The investigation into Sniper Andy progresses. He was an Afghanistan veteran, now discharged. Hearing this, David's expression is complex. He can't reveal his connection to Andy, knowing it would make him a suspect, but he's aware the police will soon uncover their link. They re-interview the Middle Eastern woman, showing her suspect photos, including Andy's. David, tense, dreads his comrade being tied to terrorists. She shakes her head, not recognizing Andy, and David sighs in relief. But when he shows Richard's sketch, she nods, confirming he gave her husband the bomb. David and Rayburn are shocked, suspecting the security service's involvement. Sharma dismisses the sketch as insufficient evidence to probe the agency. Furious, David storms out. At home, David retrieves a hidden USB, plugs it into his computer, and reviews recordings of Julia he secretly made. Recalling the iPad's documents, he notes keywords and heads to a bar to search online. The results point to dirt on the Prime Minister. A car pulls up, and two men enter the bar. David, hiding, recognizes the driver as Richard, who met Julia. He notes the car's license plate, returns to the office to check, but finds no record. The commissioner warns David against investigating the security service and takes him to Anne. David shares his findings. Searching keywords online triggers the agency's alert system, which tracks IPs to apprehend users. He reveals Richard gave Julia compromising documents about the Prime Minister, but the iPad is missing. The commissioner and Anne, stunned, suspect the counter-terrorism minister is behind it. If true, the situation is far graver than imagined. At the hospital, a nurse says Roger, Julia's ex-husband, arrived first but seemed more focused on finding something than her condition. David realizes the iPad is still out there. Confronting Roger, He says, Julia was dying, yet you were searching for something. If her death ties to you, I won't let it go. Roger denies it. David corners MacDonald, threatening his family unless he talks. With no choice, MacDonald goes with David to the police station. He admits no serious wrongdoing. Julia's closeness to the security service irked Mike and Roger, so they sabotaged her speech with subtle errors, giving it to Tahir at the last minute to embarrass her publicly. It was petty political maneuvering, not murder. Tahir was unaware of the changes. Everyone wonders, if not a high-ranking official, who could bypass tight security to plant a bomb under the stage. Stephen meets Richard, asking why the police know of him. Richard deduces David, the only one who saw his face, is responsible and plans to stop David's investigation. The commissioner confronts David with evidence of his affair with Julia, which David realizes came from Richard's hidden listening device. She orders him to stop investigating, or Julia's scandal will leak. Furious, David retorts, "They're scared I'm close to the truth, and now you're telling me to stop." He walks out. David confesses his affair to Vicky, unfazed. She says someone from the police already told her and asked if he took anything of Julia's, showing her Richard's sketch. Vicky recognizes him. David realizes Richard sought the iPad, which remains unfound, telling Vicky, it's too late. He leaves to find it first. Rayburn meets David, saying the security service questioned Vicky and searched his family's safe house, proving they haven't found the iPad and think David knows its location. Confused, he insists he doesn't. Rayburn says, they believe you do, and so do I. Let's check Julia's apartment. They're already searched multiple times. David pauses at a photo frame, recalling Julia's words. If anything happens to me, find the answer in the frame. He tells Rayburn he found nothing, keeping it to himself. At a cafe, David meets Dyson, the fired former aide. They exchange numbers. As she leaves, he photographs her car, a Range Rover from before. Meeting Rayburn, he shares suspicions about Dyson. Though no longer employed, she knew Julia's schedule and security team. Zooming in on the photo, they see the driver is Luke, a crime syndicate boss. David realizes Julia's push for anti-terrorism investigations, if she became prime minister, would have tightened surveillance, threatening both the security service and Luke's syndicate. The syndicate likely wanted her dead. The commissioner summons David, citing a report of his suicide attempt, deeming him mentally unfit for duty and forcing him to take leave. Thinking Rayburn reported him, David angrily calls her out. Rayburn, confused, has no idea what happened. Late at night, David sneaks into Julia's apartment through the back, removes the photo frame, and finds the iPad everyone's after. He reattaches the frame and leaves with it. Sharma reports to Anne. Based on David's intel, they plan to investigate Luke, but Anne shuts it down. Furious, Sharma tells Rayburn he suspects Anne is a mole. She once led the anti-organized crime unit, had ties to Luke, and rumors suggest she favored him. Dyson arranges to meet David at a bar, unsure of her intentions but with questions of his own. He goes. They talk cautiously, probing each other. Dyson apologizes, and Luke appears. During their talk, David learns Luke had his gun's bullets swapped with blanks. Dyson was bait to lure him. Luke's men knock David out and take him away. Rayburn discovers Andy was David's comrade, shocking her. She informs Sharma, suspecting David's complicity. Camera footage shows David entering Julia's apartment for just a minute, suggesting he knew exactly what to take. The iPad with evidence. Feeling betrayed, they angrily move to arrest David. David wakes in a small room, his body rigged with explosives, a detonator switch fixed to his thumb. Releasing it would trigger the bombs. Panicked, his blood pressure spiking, he wraps himself in a cloth to hide the bombs and stumbles outside, asking a passerby to call the police. Sirens blare. David senses something's off. Such a heavy police presence isn't necessary. Fully armed officers and the commissioner are there. He realizes he's been framed as a terrorist, a scapegoat. Seeing Vicky arrive, he shouts, "Don't shoot." But as the target, he's met with guns aimed at him, demanding surrender. David insists he can explain, but no one listens. Fearing gunfire, he reveals the bombs. The police, shocked, back off, keeping distance. In the city center, an explosion would be catastrophic. They order David to an open area. Stephen, at the security service, watches via cameras. All eyes are on David as he slowly moves to a vacant lot, surrounded, at risk of being shot. The commissioner has Rayburn give David a radio, urging surrender. David explains the detonator in his hand, rigged by Luke, claiming he's framed. He hid his connection to Andy because the forces behind this are powerful, and he feared being scapegoated. He planned to explain after the investigation. The commissioner, unconvinced, accuses him of Julius' assassination, deceiving everyone, and cuts off talks. Feeling doomed, David sees Vicky approach. He yells to keep her away. Fearing danger, he asks Rayburn for a bomb disposal expert, but she doubts his innocence. Orders come to shoot David. Stephen, monitoring cameras and radio, hears Sharma object. Killing David would make him a dead end, leaving no answers. Sharma asks David about the bombs. He confirms they match the train attacks. Sharma says, "We know Julius' assassination involved a police mole, and your situation makes you the prime suspect." Rayburn asks why he took the iPad with evidence. David replies, "I didn't know who to trust, security service, counter-terrorism, or police, so I kept it safe." Sharma asks where it is. David reveals, in the bathroom ceiling light at the apartment. Stephen, eavesdropping, sends someone to grab the iPad before the police. David signals the number 4. Sharma switches the radio to channel 4. Stephen orders his team to follow, but they miss David's words. "Our radio might be compromised. Tell the police not to touch the light, just wait outside." Richard breaks into David's apartment, reaches for the ceiling light, and triggers a pepper spray trap. David said, blinded. He's arrested by police. Sharma reports capturing someone matching David's sketch. Stephen, furious, curses. A bomb disposal expert examines the device but isn't confident about disarming it, planning to consult colleagues. Anne arrives, branding David a terrorist and mole, refusing his explanations, ordering everyone to retreat for a kill shot. Sharma, enraged, tells Rayburn Anne wants David dead to pin all blame on him. David, facing death, despairs. Vicky rushes to him despite his shouts, risking their kids losing both parents. Believing him innocent, her presence stops the police from shooting, fearing harm to a civilian. David demands to prove his innocence. Defying Anne, he and Vicky head to his apartment, police tailing them. The media broadcasts live. Mike blames Anne for mishandling. Stephen appears, and a brief talk exposes the factions. Anne isn't the mole but seeks truth. Mike and Stephen, aligned with the Prime Minister, want David's evidence destroyed. Uncaring about Julius' killer, Anne retorts, "Let's see if you can convince the public," and leaves. At the apartment, David tells Vicky to dig up the iPad buried in the garden, informing Sharma, "These documents will shock everyone and prove the security service's involvement." He adds, "My gun and the bomb vest have the suspect's fingerprints and DNA. Test them to find my framer and the bomb maker." David has Vicky deliver the evidence. A bomb disposal expert arrives with a screened vehicle, guiding David to disarm the bombs. David tells everyone to back off and begins the dangerous process. By the hero's Orid trope, he reaches the final step. He asks Sharma about Richard. Sharma gets Rayburn's message. Richard was released. Stunned, David knows the forces behind this are powerful. Even if he disarms the bomb, he could be blamed. Cutting the final wire, he tells everyone to retreat. Fearing an explosion, they scatter. Glancing around, heart racing, David cuts the wire. The bombs deactivate, and he's safe. He bolts, vanishing before the distant police can react. Dyson returns home to find David waiting. Terrified, she's unsure what to do. David forces her to call Luke, baiting him with fake intel that the mole is about to talk, prompting Luke to silence them. David follows Luke to catch the mole. Luke drives to a parking garage, where David sees him confront someone, the commissioner. Furious, David ambushes Luke's men, takes a gun, and forces Luke to kneel. Luke confesses to Julius' assassination. David, enraged, nearly kills him but fires wide at the last second. Looking at the commissioner, he says, "It's over." Rayburn tells David the fingerprints on his blank-loaded gun and bomb vest belong to Luke's men, clearing him. She reconciles with a handshake. The commissioner admits her crimes. She fed Luke Julius' schedule and security details, enabling her assassination attempts and death, and framed David. She denies involvement in the school attack, swearing she'd never harm a subordinate's family. David realizes they overlooked the least suspected figure, the Middle Eastern woman, seemingly frail and abused. On the train, she saw his kids' photos and heard their names. From prison, she contacted outsiders for revenge. Her fingerprints and DNA were on David's bombs. She was the bomb maker for all the terrorist attacks, including Julius. Her false identification of Richard was to mislead the police. Everyone was deceived. Based on David's evidence, the Prime Minister is exposed and resigns. Stephen quits. Mike keeps his post. The commissioner, Luke, and Dyson are arrested. David asks who leaked the iPad's contents. Anne smugly says, "I don't know." David smiles cryptically. Anne arranges therapy for David and reinstates him. After surviving, David and Vicky reconcile, starting a happy new life with their kids. The film, Bodyguard, ends here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for following, and see you next time.
Roof armor will protect us. Take care of the pea.